Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We're always looking for ways to work smarter, not harder, as school leaders, and I think this one is really going to resonate.
I think so too.
Today, we're talking about the 80-20 principle.
Yeah.
And maybe you've heard this before, maybe you haven't, but it's this idea that roughly 80% of your results
Right.
come from just 20% of your efforts.
Yeah.
So as you think about your own school or district,
Mm-hmm.
you know, think back to your own experience. Have you ever noticed this kind of imbalance at play?
I think we all have. I mean, if
Yeah.
you really think about it, it's kind of everywhere.
That's what we're going to unpack today
Yeah,
with our expert here
absolutely.
to really see how can this be our secret weapon,
Yeah,
for greater impact in our schools.
absolutely.
So, you use this word imbalance,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's really interesting because the 80-20 principle really highlights how this
Yeah,
the seemingly uneven distribution
yeah.
is actually natural. We see it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading about how it even happens in nature.
Absolutely.
So like you take the growth of fish in a pond,
Right.
like a small number of fish often dominate the growth
Yeah.
while the rest lag behind.
Mm-hmm.
Or like language,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a tiny fraction of words make up the majority of our conversations.
Right.
So it's like that saying, work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Like instead of spreading ourselves thin trying to do everything,
Yeah.
we need to figure out where is that 20%
Right.
that's really going to have the biggest payoff.
Exactly.
So how do we actually pinpoint
Right. Yeah.
those high impact areas
Yeah.
in a school?
Well, that's really where the magic of the 80-20 principle comes in.
Okay.
It's not just about observing the imbalance,
Right.
but it's about leveraging it to your advantage.
Okay.
So let's think about this in the context of school initiatives,
Okay.
right? You have schools
Yeah.
that have long lists of programs and projects,
Right.
all well-intentioned, of course.
Of course. Yeah.
But are all of them equally effective in driving student achievement?
Probably not.
Probably not.
No.
Uh,
Yeah. Are you saying we need to get a little ruthless with our to-do list?
yeah.
Like what are those initiatives that are really moving the needle and maybe let go of some
Yeah.
that aren't having the impact?
I think so.
Oh.
I think it's about making some tough choices
Yeah.
and focusing your resources,
Right.
time, funding, staff, energy on those initiatives
Yeah.
that are truly essential.
Okay.
It's a shift from doing more
Yeah.
to doing what matters most.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think, this idea of prioritization
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of another really crucial skill for school leaders,
Yeah,
which is negotiation,
absolutely.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We are constantly negotiating for resources, whether it's with district officials or community partners or even within our own schools.
Absolutely.
So could this 80-20 mindset
Mm-hmm.
actually help us become more effective negotiators?
I think so.
Okay. Tell me more.
Well, think about any negotiation.
Okay.
There are often a few key points that are non-negotiable, right? The
Mm.
ones that will make or break the deal.
Right.
And so the 80-20 principle encourages us to laser focus on those crucial points
Yeah.
to ensure that our efforts are directed towards achieving those must-haves.
Okay. So instead of getting bogged down in every little detail,
Yeah.
we need to figure out what's that 20% of the negotiation
Right.
that's going to yield 80% the result.
It's about strategic resource allocation.
Okay.
It's ensuring that our limited time funding staff
Mm.
are being channeled towards the areas
Yeah.
with the highest potential return.
This reminds me of how businesses use targeted marketing, right?
Right.
Like they identify their most valuable customers
Yeah.
and they really nurture those relationships
Yeah.
for loyalty and growth.
Mm-hmm.
So could we apply that same thinking to schools?
Absolutely.
Like who would be the 20% we should focus on to drive positive change?
That's such a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one that every school leader should be asking themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Who are those individuals within your school community that
Mm.
have the potential to create a ripple effect of positive change?
Yeah.
It might be students who need extra support to succeed,
Right.
or teachers who are on the verge of becoming incredible mentors.
Okay.
Right.
So it's not about playing favorites.
Right.
It's about recognizing,
It's about impact.
yeah,
Yeah.
like certain individuals,
Yeah.
if given the right support and opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
could become catalysts for positive change.
Absolutely.
within the entire school.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about identifying and empowering those individuals,
Yeah.
whether it's the students or the staff members that
Yeah.
can really amplify your efforts
Hmm.
and help you achieve your school's goals.
This is making me think about time management,
Yeah.
which is a constant struggle for
Yeah.
school leaders. Like, we're always juggling so many responsibilities.
Mm.
It's easy to feel so overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
And that's why...
And that's why the 80-20 principle can be so liberating for
yeah.
school leaders.
Yeah.
Because, we think about traditional time management strategies.
Yeah.
They often focus on doing more in less time,
Right.
which can lead to burnout.
Right.
The 80-20 approach is about fundamentally changing how we think about time.
Okay.
It's about identifying the 20% of tasks that yield 80% of the results
Mhm.
and ruthlessly prioritizing them.
So instead of managing time,
Yeah.
we need to, revolutionize how we approach it.
I think so.
It sounds a bit radical, but also really appealing.
It is a shift in thinking,
Yeah.
but it's a necessary one
Okay.
for school leaders
Okay.
who are constantly bombarded with demands on their time.
Yeah.
So think about it. If you could identify those truly high-impact tasks
Mm-hmm.
and let go of the rest or delegate them effectively, imagine how much more focused and effective you could be.
That does sound really freeing.
Right.
But how do we determine which tasks fall into that vital 20%?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it takes reflection.
Okay.
It requires a deep understanding of your school's unique goals
Yeah.
and the activities that truly move the needle toward achieving them.
Okay.
So take a moment to think about your daily interactions
Mm.
with staff, students, and the community.
Okay.
Are you spreading yourself too thin, trying to be everything to everyone? Or are you strategically nurturing those relationships that are essential for driving positive change?
Hmm.
This is making me rethink my whole approach
Yeah.
to building relationships in the school community.
It's not about the quantity,
Right,
but the
but
quality.
It's about the quality of those connections.
Yeah.
It's about fostering deep, meaningful relationships with the people who can help you achieve your school's mission,
Mhm.
whether that's your leadership team,
Right.
key teachers,
Yeah.
influential parents, community partners.
Yeah, it's about collaborative leadership, not just checking boxes.
Exactly.
This is really resonating with me.
I'm glad to hear that.
But I know our listeners are eager to hear more about how this all translates to the daily grind
Absolutely.
of being a school leader.
And that's what we'll delve into next.
Okay, great.
Yeah, the 80-20 principle isn't just this theoretical concept.
Right.
It's a practical tool that can help you navigate the complexities of school leadership
Mm-hmm.
and create a more positive and impactful work experience.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Well, I'm excited to dive in
I am too.
more after the break.
Sounds great. So, I think one of the biggest pain points we hear from school leaders is this constant feeling of being overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're drowning in a sea of tasks and responsibilities.
Yeah.
They're always putting out fires.
Mm.
And they never have time to focus on the things that truly matter.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right.
That feeling of always being on a hamster wheel is something every school leader knows.
Absolutely.
So how can this 80-20 mindset help us break free
Yeah.
from that reactive cycle
Yeah.
and become more proactive leaders?
Well, I think it starts with a conscious shift in focus.
Okay.
Instead of trying to do everything, we
Mhm.
need to identify those tasks that are truly essential for achieving our school's goals.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier we talked about streamlining initiatives.
Yeah.
This same principle applies to your daily tasks as well.
Okay.
So what are the 20% of activities
Mhm.
that are actually driving 80% of the results?
Okay. So,
Those are the ones that deserve your time and attention.
like, for example, if a principal is spending hours each week responding to emails,
Right.
but most of those emails are just FYI updates
Yeah.
or require a simple yes or no answer,
Right.
could they delegate that task
Absolutely.
to free up their time for something more strategic?
That's a perfect example.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
By delegating or automating those less essential tasks,
Mm-hmm.
the principal can reclaim valuable time to focus on activities that have a bigger impact on the school.
Right.
Things like instructional leadership, mentoring teachers, or building relationships with families.
So it's about being a multiplier, not just a doer.
Exactly.
Leveraging your time and energy to have the greatest possible impact
Absolutely.
on the school community.
That's right.
And, I think this principle can be applied to so many aspects of school leadership.
I agree.
Let's take meetings, for instance.
Okay.
We've all been in those meetings that feel like a complete waste of time.
Uh-huh.
Are all the meetings you attend truly necessary?
That's a good question.
Do they have a clear purpose and a well-defined agenda?
Right.
I think we've all experienced those meeting marathons
Absolutely.
that leave us feeling drained and unproductive.
Yeah.
So are you suggesting we should just do away with meetings altogether?
Not necessarily, but we do need to be much more intentional about how we spend our time in meetings. So, if a meeting doesn't have a clear objective and a desired outcome, it's probably not worth everyone's time.
Mm-hmm.
So before scheduling or accepting a meeting invitation, ask yourself,
Uh.
what's the 20% of this meeting
Yeah.
that will drive 80% of the results?
Oh, I love that.
Right.
It's like applying the 80-20 principle as a filter for our calendars.
Exactly.
If we can't identify that crucial 20%,
Yeah.
that's going to move the needle.
Right.
Maybe the meeting can be an email or a quick phone call instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about being ruthless with your time and protecting it for those activities that truly matter.
I like that.
And this same principle can even be applied to professional development for teachers.
Okay. Yeah.
So often we take this one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
But what if we use the 80-20 lens to make professional development more targeted and effective?
So instead of like generic workshops that may or may not be relevant to everyone,
Right.
we could focus on identifying the specific areas where teachers need the most support.
Yeah.
And then tailor the professional learning accordingly.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about personalized professional learning, just like we talk about personalized learning for students.
Yeah.
So by targeting professional development
Right.
to meet the needs of the 20% of teachers who are struggling the most
Mm-hmm.
or who have the potential to make the biggest impact,
Yeah.
we can see a much greater return on our investment.
This is really shifting my whole perspective.
I'm glad to hear that.
On school leadership, it's like I'm seeing things through a new lens.
That's good.
It's not about working harder, it's about working smarter
It is.
and focusing our energy where it will make the biggest difference.
Yeah, that's the heart of the 80-20 principle.
Yeah.
It's about maximizing your impact
Mm-hmm.
and ensuring that your efforts are aligned with your school's most important goals.
This has been incredibly eye-opening.
Good.
But I'm curious to hear more about how this principle applies to the human side of school leadership,
Okay.
the relationships we build with staff, students, and the community.
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore in more depth in our next segment.
Okay, fantastic.
The 80-20 principle can help us become more strategic and intentional
Mm-hmm.
in how we build and nurture those relationships
Yeah,
that are essential for creating a thriving school community.
wonderful. I can't wait to hear more.
Me too.
Welcome back to our deep dive.
Yeah.
We've been exploring this 80-20 principle and how it can really empower school leaders
Yeah.
to work smarter, not harder.
And in this final segment, I really want to dig into how this principle can help us foster a more collaborative and effective school culture
Okay.
through strategic relationship building.
This is what I've been waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how the 80-20 mindset can help us streamline initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
prioritize tasks,
Right.
even revolutionize our approach to time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really intrigued by how this principle applies to like the human side of school leadership,
Yeah.
the relationships
It's a relationship.
that are the very heart of a thriving school.
Absolutely. You're right. The 80-20 principle isn't just about managing tasks or resources. It's about understanding where our efforts will yield the greatest return. And that includes the relationships we cultivate.
Right.
So think about the people in your school community
Okay.
who have the greatest influence on student success.
Are you saying we need to be strategic about who we spend our time with?
Yeah.
Not that we should ignore anyone,
Right.
but that certain relationships
Yeah.
have the potential to be more
I
impactful
do.
than others when it comes to like driving change.
Exactly. It's not about playing favorites. It's about recognizing that some relationships have a greater multiplier effect.
Okay.
So, for example, building a strong relationship with a teacher who is a natural leader among their peers can have a ripple effect
Oh, wow.
throughout the entire department.
So instead of trying to be everyone's best friend,
Right.
a principal could focus on really deepening their connection with those key influencers who can then help spread best practices, boost morale, create a more unified school culture.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's about leveraging those relationships
Right.
to amplify your impact and create a more collaborative environment.
Okay.
And this same principle applies to our interactions with students.
Mm-hmm.
While it's important to connect with every student,
Right.
some students might benefit more from extra attention and support.
So instead of spreading ourselves thin,
Yeah.
trying to be everything to every student,
Right.
we should identify those students
Yes.
who could really benefit from a mentor, a role model, or just an extra advocate
Yeah.
in their corner.
Those students who might be struggling academically or socially, or those who have the potential to be leaders but need a little extra encouragement to blossom.
Hmm.
By investing in those key relationships, we can make a disproportionately positive impact
Yeah.
on the lives of our students.
This is making me think about how we engage with parents
Yes.
and the wider community as well.
Yes.
There are so many demands on our time,
Right.
but are we focusing our efforts on building those relationships that are most essential,
Yes.
for supporting our students and achieving our school's mission?
That's a crucial question for every school leader to consider.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's cultivating strong relationships with parent leaders who can help bridge the gap between the school and the community.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's partnering with local organizations that can provide valuable resources for our students. The 80-20 principle encourages us to be strategic and intentional with our community engagement efforts.
This has been so insightful.
Good, I'm glad.
I feel like I have a whole new framework for thinking about school leadership,
That's great.
not just as a manager of tasks and resources, but as a cultivator of relationships that can transform a school.
And remember, the 80-20 principle isn't about neglecting any part of your school community. It's about being mindful of where your efforts will have the greatest impact
Right.
and making strategic choices to maximize your effectiveness as a leader.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the 80-20 principle is such a powerful tool
Yeah.
for any school leader, but it requires a shift in mindset.
Okay.
It's about embracing this idea that imbalance is natural.
Mm-hmm.
And that by focusing on the most impactful activities and relationships, we can achieve extraordinary results
Yeah.
for our students and our schools.
It's about leading with intention, clarity, and a deep understanding of what truly matters.
You got it.
This has been incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us on another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you later.